Hey guys, Luna here, and welcome to another episode of that Crypto Hustle podcast. So I'm super excited. I have today with us Juan, who is an accountant in the Silicon Valley. So we're trying this again because last time we had a little bit of technical issues. Super excited that you could make it again. Thanks
That's
for being on the show, Juan.
yeah, no, thanks for having me again this time. I know I was in a suit last time, but just at my house today, a little bit more casual, so
Yeah, well,
looking forward to
it's really late for
yeah,
you, so I'm super excited that you uh
no.
you made the effort to talk to me since I'm in Barcelona and you're somewhere in the West Coast in the US.
Right, right. Over here in San Jose, Silicon Valley.
San
So
Jose. Nice.
yeah, up late over here.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. You're a true
let's
hustler
do this.
and making this happen.
Yeah, no, that's a hustle. Let's do it.
All right, so before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into cryptocurrency
hmm
and also your career, like being an accountant in Silicon Valley. So how did it all transpire for you?
hmm So I actually, the first time I heard about cryptocurrency, the first time I heard about Bitcoin was in 2013
Hmm.
in my entrepreneurship class. I was an accounting major, but I wanted to take the entrepreneurship class, and we all had to get in groups and start a business. Okay, and I was in a group of five guys. I wanted to start a different business, but there was this one kid, this one CIS computer guy, right? He wanted to start a Bitcoin exchange, and I was like, okay, what is that? And so I started. I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do his idea at first, but I started researching Bitcoin and just learning a lot about money. At this time, it was like $238 when they were saying this, and I was like, okay. I was like, it might do that, but looking back on it, I definitely should have invested, right? But what we did at that time is we were still trying to make a crypto exchange. So we started talking to real estate investors at in Texas, near Austin, and we got a chance to talk to even Mark Cuban. But like literally, no Texas investors wanted to touch something like Bitcoin at that time in 2013,
Hmm.
and they thought it was cool. They saw it on the Wall Street Journal, but they were a little bit confused. And even Mark Cuban at that time, he told us, he just gave us a one-liner back. He said, not a fit for me, thanks. So that that was one of the reasons I moved out here to Silicon Valley, was because I noticed a change. There's going to be a change in money, right? Regardless if it's Bitcoin or Litecoin or any other cryptocurrencies. Now people are realizing that you can exchange money and it doesn't have to be tied to a central authority. It's just an exchange of something in that people value.
Let's talk about taxes because a lot of people are really confused,
Let's do
especially
it.
it's like tax season right now. So what's like the major
hmm
change that currently happened this year with taxes and what are some of the things that people should be looking out for this year, especially they've been trading?
Right. So, what I'll say first is that taxes to crypto traders and people that uh, are new to crypto, taxes are kind of the elephant in the room, right? No one really knows what's going on, or no one wants to talk about it, whether they're gonna pay their taxes or not. Because to some extent, I mean, there are ways with crypto to evade taxes, but what I'll say to that right now is that the IRS, whether they have the technology right now or not, or whether they are hiring a really good third party to
Hmm.
audit big crypto traders and investors, I believe they will follow them. They always follow the money, and so they'll have something better in the future. So that means if you evade taxes right now, right? Let's say, I don't know, everybody wants to be a millionaire. Let's say you become a multimillionaire, right? Five years down the line, and the IRS figures out you owe all these capital gains from 2017, 2018, and then you don't have that money to pay that liquidity to cough up that tax bill at that time. That is actually a way a lot of people lose a lot of their money, is evading taxes that kind of way. And so the IRS goes back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They audit your past transactions and they try to figure out if you did evade taxes. So I think that's
Right.
definitely something they'll be monitoring once they do get the technology. They'll be monitoring 2018 and 2017 when everybody had this big exponential growth,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of my accountant hat with IRS, right? Like pay your taxes. But what I have to say about the changes that people should know about is that uh, the government and the IRS don't consider cryptocurrencies an actual currency. So even though you and I might pay each other or trade it or even buy from existing businesses with something like Litecoin, the government just views it as an intangible asset. So it is not a currency, meaning every time you sell that asset at a gain, right? It's intangible property. You get a capital gains tax. Now, it's always been good to hold it long, right, and get a long-term capital gains,
Mm-hmm.
which is when you hold, say, let's say you have been holding Bitcoin for over a year or any other coin for over a year, then you're going to get taxed, depending on your income, about 15 to 20%.
Okay.
So that's pretty low compared to short-term capital gains, which is what you actually have to pay now when you switch, when you just make a simple trade from Bitcoin to Litecoin or Litecoin to Ethereum. You have to pay the tax on each trade, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But the tax on that is a short-term capital gain. You you pulled the gains from your asset in less than a year, so it's taxed at a higher rate. And for most people, from around $40,000 to $80,000 in income, that will be around 25%. And then I believe people over the $500,000, it can easily get in the mid 30s. And let's say you make, $1 million. That's 300 over $300,000 in taxes easily, especially if you don't have any deductions or anything else going on. But I think I think that there's definitely a strategy now to hold long term, at least some of your coins or one coin or one investment, right? Because it just makes sense. And what I don't know if you have a lot of super big traders on your channel, but if what the super big traders do to kind of save on taxes, and I'm not giving tax advice to any one particular person. I'm just saying what people do, right? What they do is they actually make a business out of trading and they run the income through an LLC, so they get taxed
Ah,
at a lower rate. So that's how, if you're making tons of money trading and it's your day job, then it would be best to make a business out of that day job of trading, right? Don't just sit there and trade all day without running it through an LLC. But
well,
yeah, I
especially
mean, the
with the
rest of us are
new
gonna.
laws that came out under the Trump government. With, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
because I know, I mean, I'm a freelancer, so.
Hmm.
But okay, so that's really interesting. You gave a lot of really good information. So the first one is holding versus day
Hmm.
trading, because essentially the more you
Hmm.
trade, the more
Hmm.
taxable your income is, especially based on how big your gains are, right? So
Right, right.
so my question to you is, let's talk about holding. Let's say, and individuals who
Hmm.
perhaps like are still holding Bitcoin and they're in it for the long run.
Hmm.
Let's say that,
Hmm.
I don't know, 2, 3, 10 years from now, who knows, like Bitcoin will reach 100,000 and whatever, you bought
Hmm.
it for 1,000, it's now 100K. You want to perhaps cash some of it out. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously you can't look into the future, but let's
Hmm.
say that you were to cash out this year. Like what would happen? Is it something where you're going to be taxed on that year, and how much of that, how big of a percentage? Like, I mean, how does that work? Do you know?
Right, right. So let's say you were holding it since 2013, I guess.
Hmm.
Let's make a specific example. And so let's say you hold it for 3 years, 4 years until let's say you hold it till 2018, right? And then you sell under these tax laws,
Mm-hmm.
then nothing in the past really matters. You did get the capital gains, meaning it's a lower tax rate for you, depending on the gain, depending on the income that you have at the time. But it would be around 15 to 20% in that tax as of the tax laws right now. Now, say a lot of people are new to cryptocurrencies. You buy something right now, 5 years down the line, the tax rates actually go down, maybe for long term capital gains. I actually don't see that really that situation happening because they don't like to change it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you would pay the tax rate in that year that you do cash out.
Another important point, which you already brought up, is that if you're day trading or trading pretty aggressively, then you have a business, and then it's in your best interest to create an
Hmm.
LLC and also do your due diligence,
Hmm.
have an accountant who can help you
Hmm.
come up with creative ways to, I mean,
Right.
to pay your taxes or to have deductibles, whatever it is, in order to
Hmm.
help your business long run. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm sure we've all had the experience of receiving those lovely tax letters like years back, like, oh, you never paid this, and here's the interest rate. And I think that's probably what's going to
Right.
happen this year because a lot of people are trying to like
Hmm.
pushing it under the rug. But yeah, I mean, where there's money
Hmm.
to be made, of course, taxes are going to be after it. That's just the way things are. So, I mean,
Right.
what are some of the large corporations currently doing in order to sort of play the system? And I mean, when we last spoke, you mentioned like there's probably going to be a lot of offshoring happening. So, I
Hmm.
mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
Hmm. Yeah. So, government. What I'll say about governments is just that governments are governments, right? And they have to. They always act in the best interest of their leadership, which is why in some places cryptocurrencies are banned, right? It's because the government wants it that way. In the U.S., cryptocurrencies are taxed because they love to tax money. The SEC is obviously cracking down on ICOs and things of that nature. But actually, just to stop in the U.S. real quick and say, give an insight that a lot of people don't really know when they're investing in ICOs is that I know we're talking about tax today, but the United States government isn't as much concerned as collecting tax as it is with regulating ICOs. So right now they're very much more focused on using their resources to kind of regulate the market and see what they can do to kind of make it less and less of a wild west. But other countries kind of accepting it, like being very welcoming to cryptocurrency companies and blockchain companies like Switzerland have laws that are good for ICOs and laws where you don't risk making a security by accident and then going to jail or like getting all your startup funding taken away, right? A lot of investors I see here in the Valley move like across the globe and they travel just to invest in ICOs and meet new people because they are afraid of investing in ICOs in the States. So that's what I see the big money doing here in Silicon Valley. And another thing, I think you asked a question about what are the big companies doing. What we see venture capital over here doing is not investing in coins, in cryptocurrencies specifically, as in not buying it on the exchange, but actually funding them through classic rounds of venture capital investments so that they don't have the liability of the market. They still don't like that. And some venture capital firms over here buy coins. They buy some of the bigger name coins, obviously, but a lot of them just fund the company and invest in businesses specifically. So that's kind of my strategy too. Although I do it through the exchange, I fundamentally invest in things that I see as companies or startup with startup potential, right? So I don't just trade anything that's
Hmm.
going up. That's how a lot of people kind of pump and dump and lose a lot of money. But I think I think if you know the technology or know the idea, and a thing I learned a long time ago in 2013, I mean, if you know that you know that you know what you're talking about, and you know it's going to be part of the future, I
Hmm.
mean, you I'm not going to tell you to invest, but just do what you think is the right thing as an investor. Use your
Yeah.
investing principles, right? Don't buy don't just buy high or anything that's booming, right? I mean, these things do have a place in the future. So some of these companies or startups or organizations or foundations are actually undervalued right now. That's what I'll say about
It's in,
valuation.
yeah, it's interesting you say that just because our last interview we're speaking to Kurt Braggett, and he has the exact same approach where
Hmm,
he feels more comfortable. I mean, and also he has a
really?
background as a software engineer, so he feels more comfortable investing in ICOs versus coins per
Hmm.
se. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's different
Hmm.
strategies out there, and it's kind of the wild wild west. So whatever you feel more comfortable doing, obviously, more power to you. But so I wanted to ask you,
Hmm.
as far as like, so what's like the best way this year for someone who invested and did some trading? I mean, I think most people probably traded a little bit here and there. Like, how are they going to be filing their taxes
Right.
this year? Like, I mean, what's sort of the auditing process that needs to happen?
Right. So, first of all, a lot of people might uh, already be trying to use TurboTax for it, and I don't think TurboTax is really gonna be gonna be ready for all
Yeah.
these entries.
Hmm.
I mean, it is possible if you're doing it over TurboTax, but I mean, if you can't in a situation where you can't afford a CPA, I feel like if you are a person who do has you can afford a CPA to do your personal taxes. I mean, your CPA, regardless if it's a cryptocurrency, they're gonna read the tax law and know what to do. Is that the IRS wants the dollar value, the USD value of the particular coin you traded at the time you traded it. And in the Excel file, in the spreadsheet that they give you of your trades, the price at the time of trade in USD isn't included. So what I'll say, what it doesn't have to be is the exact price at that time. The IRS is not going to get mad if you give them a reasonable estimate. And if you had your accountant do it for you, he would probably give a reasonable estimate for the price of at the time of trade because the exchanges just don't offer that right now, like something like Scott Trade does, right? So, I mean, it's a tough situation for traders. This new law, but that's what's going to have to be done.
So essentially, you're going to have an Excel sheet with all your different
Right.
trades.
And then on that gain, there's going to be, I mean, it could be depending on your income. If you have below $40,000, it's probably around, I think it's around a 20% tax. So that's not too much if that's helping you make, if these trades are something that's helping you make a lot of money, right? I wouldn't be too afraid of paying the tax, but obviously a lot of people are afraid to get into that Excel file, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
start having to do that one by one, especially if you make 100 trades a day. Let's say someone makes a bunch of trades a day. What do they do, right? So I mean that's the manual labor that's going to have to be done this year, and uh, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there actually willing to do that in people's areas, I guess, because there's no there's no easy way to do that when the exchanges don't give you the USD price at the time of trade. But I mean, paying your taxes on assets on these types of investments, these are things that people just have to do. And so I'm amazed at all the new people that are learning about money and learning about investing and learning about just the way money even works and becoming more financial literate, right? And now maybe even owing capital gains tax for the very first time. So uh, I think if this is something you do want to be involved in, I mean, you're going to have to be focused on the numbers, right? Because if you're not focused even on these taxes, you just, it's like every other thing. Like if you're not focused
Mm-hmm.
during your trading or during assessing a company, right? Or researching the white paper, I mean, you could lose more money than you could make if you're not that precise. And so I would try to be precise with my taxes just because it's another thing that means more money for me or I'm making money the right way,
Right,
right?
right. No, definitely, or less money for you, definitely. So what are, I mean, you provided
Mm,
a lot of like really good insights. Like, so first of all, it's crazy that there's no software out there that enables you to track your trades. And you're absolutely right. A lot of the platforms, the trading platforms, like don't have that option right now. And I'm sure that's something they'll need to
mm.
integrate. Um,
Hopefully, yeah.
yeah, most definitely. So I only can foresee how painful that's going to be. But I mean, what are some of like to conclude, like what are some other advice that you can give to individuals who, I mean, where's the best place to get information as to, I mean, I guess probably the IRS website is probably a pretty obvious one, but is there any other place or blog that you know of where people can sort of get information as to how to handle this? And maybe also where can people find like crypto CPAs or like actually certified? Because I'm sure there's a lot of
Right.
scammers out there.
No, yeah. Yeah. So I definitely wouldn't just, hand your records over to a crypto CPA over the web. I would never do that. Never share your financial information like that over the internet. But I mean, you were saying, is there a place where you can read? I mean,
Yeah.
so
Where can you get
YouTube
information about
still,
this? YouTube, really?
right,
Okay.
right. Yeah. YouTube really, I mean, I know that the accountants on YouTube are going to be talking about this, or there's already a guy, right? I think you even said like the name verbatim, like crypto CPA or something like that. But I know there's a guy there's a tons of guys on Twitter with that kind of handle, on Instagram. I actually haven't seen what they're posting, but I mean, you might want to check them out. I'll check them out as well and actually let you know
Juan,
what I
there's a
see.
golden
But
opportunity for you. You should like start a blog
I
about
mean,
this. You
I
start a
mean, I
YouTube
could, right?
channel. We'll all
I think, I
subscribe.
think, right? So, I mean, I haven't got down to doing my taxes yet, right? It's not that optimal time, but it's just, right. But when I do, I might record a video or a little screen sharing thing of exactly what I'm doing or like what I'm trying to do manually to get this tax, right? So, but I'm sure there's people with YouTube videos already up with tons of information of how to report your capital gains. So, I mean, uh, let's say you have capital gains. What you're gonna need ready is the IRS forms for that, and that's not too hard to find, especially if you just type in Google capital gains form IRS, right? Let's just tax law is tough this year for traders, but
Yeah, it is.
that's what they
It is what it is. And I guess finally, like,
exactly.
is there a place to find like CPAs with crypto experience? Do you know?
I know there's a place to find just CPAs in general. I
Hmm.
don't know the actual site on Google just because I've never, looked for a CPA for myself. But I would say that I would say that a lot of good CPAs just, even if they don't understand crypto, they should understand that it's an asset and it's not taxed any differently than any other asset you would flip,
Okay.
like capital gains from a business or a property. So maybe if you have maybe you're using an old school accountant, maybe explain that to them and just
Hmm.
say, hey, these are investments. But yeah, I mean, right now, even flipping property is actually cheaper than
Wow.
flipping crypto. It can't happen as fast, but there are those special rules under property. But the IRS isn't considering those for crypto right now. But yeah, if you do find yourself in a situation where you're needing a CPA, just to explain to them that it's an asset, it's an investment, and so the capital gains tax applies. That's all. That would be a one-liner to an accountant, and they would most likely know what to do.
Got it. Got it. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for all this extremely valuable information. Really appreciate it. Do you have a website,
No,
Twitter
of course.
account, or anything we can like check you out at?
So I've actually been thinking about starting my own podcast pretty soon here,
Nice.
and I'll be announcing what it is going to be, and when I make it on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram at Juan G underscore elite, so I'll be announcing it there, and then I'll be putting a lot of cool stuff out and kind of my insights on what I see here in the Valley, especially things that have to do with money and venture capital and things like that, right? So I'll be talking a
Awesome.
lot about that.
Awesome. So what I'll do is I'll add you to our closed Facebook group. And then,
Awesome, awesome.
yeah, and then also what I'll do is I'll make sure to include your Instagram handle so people can check you out.
Okay,
Awesome. Well,
okay, great.
I don't want to hold you any longer because I know it's really late for you. So thank you so much for
No,
taking
yeah,
the time
yeah. I
to
want to go to sleep now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I want to make sure that you get a good night
No, no, of
rest.
course.
So thank you so much for doing the interview and
No,
looking forward to hearing more about your podcast and all your different projects. Thanks for joining us, Juan.
thanks, thanks. Of course, thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye.